Welcome to my channel, The Historic State. In the crucible of combat, under the relentless roar of war, soldiers forge bonds stronger than blood. They become brothers, sisters, a family born of fire and sacrifice. But what happens when those bonds are tested to their absolute breaking point? What happens when you're ordered to abandon a brother, to leave him for dead? Today, we tell an extraordinary true story of defiance, loyalty, and an unbreakable promise. The orders were clear. Abandon him. What they did next changed everything. This is the saga of a small Marine unit who chose Brotherhood over orders, and in doing so, wrote a new chapter in the unwritten code of honor. NNTHE year is 2005. The place, a sun-baked, dust-choked valley deep within enemy territory. For 3 days, Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, had been engaged in a relentless firefight. Every ridge seemed to hide an enemy sniper, every shadow a hidden ambush. Sergeant Alex Miller, a grizzled veteran, had seen it all, but nothing prepared him for this. As his squad advanced through a narrow pass, a hidden machine gun nest erupted. Miller was hit. A round tore through his side, dropping him instantly. His comrades, led by Lieutenant Ben Carter, immediately tried to reach him. But the enemy fire was simply too intense. Miller was pinned down, bleeding 50 meters away from the nearest cover, exposed to a merciless hail of bullets. Lieutenant Ben Carter, a young but capable officer, watched in horror. Miller wasn't just a sergeant. He was a mentor, a friend, a rock for every man in the squad. Carter immediately called for suppressing fire, for air support, for anything that could give them a window to extract Miller. But the enemy had them outflanked, outgunned. Air support was tied up elsewhere, and reinforcement was hours away. Time was running out for Miller. Every minute that passed, his life bled away onto the dusty ground. And back at the battalion command post, miles away from the chaos, Colonel Thompson listened to the frantic reports. He knew the odds, he knew the terrain, and he knew the protocol. With heavy enemy contact, no available support, and the risk of losing more men for a potentially unrecoverable casualty, the decision was agonizing, but militarily sound. His voice, heavy with command, crackled over Carter's radio. "Lieutenant Carter, you are ordered to withdraw your unit to safe lines. Miller is designated KIA. Do you copy? Withdraw immediately." Carter's blood ran cold. KIA. Killed in action. It was a cold, brutal designation. They were being ordered to abandon Sergeant Miller, to leave him for dead. And a lifetime of training, of discipline, of following orders, screamed in Carter's mind. The protocol was absolute, but the face of Sergeant Miller, lying exposed, bleeding, was also absolute. He looked at his men. Young faces, hardened by war, but united by an unspoken code. They were waiting for him. And in that split second, Lieutenant Carter made the most difficult decision of his life. He took a deep breath, clenched his jaw, and against every fiber of military obedience, he gave his response. His voice calm, but radiating unshakable resolve. "Negative, sir. We are not leaving him. Sergeant Miller is still alive, and we're bringing him home." Colonel Thompson's reply was a roar of fury over the radio. "Lieutenant, that is a direct order. You are committing insubordination. You will risk your entire squad." But Carter had already tuned him out. He looked at his men. There was no hesitation in their eyes, only grim determination. They immediately began to shift tactics. They weren't fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for one of their own. Under Carter's quick commands, they coordinated a new plan. 2 men would provide constant, heavy suppressing fire. 2 more would lay smoke grenades to provide cover. And Carter himself, with 1 other Marine, would make the dash for Miller. The smoke grenades exploded, creating a hazy screen, a desperate gamble against the enemy's sights. Lieutenant Carter, with Corporal Davies, sprinted through the swirling smoke and enemy fire. Bullets whizzed past their heads, impacting the ground around them. It was a suicide run. They reached Miller, who was barely conscious, groaning in pain, his uniform soaked in blood. Together, they grabbed him, Miller's weight a dead anchor, and began the agonizing drag back to cover. Every step was a battle against the enemy, against their own exhaustion, and against the fading life of their sergeant. They pulled him inch by agonizing inch, until finally they reached the meager safety of their position. Miller was safe, but barely. His breath was shallow, his pulse weak. The squad's medic immediately went to work, battling to stem the bleeding. Lieutenant Carter, his uniform torn, his face streaked with Miller's blood, grabbed the radio. "Colonel," he gasped, his voice strained but triumphant. "Miller is secure. We are extracting to Rendezvous Point Alpha." There was a long silence on the other end. Colonel Thompson, hearing the impossible news, felt a conflict rage within him. Fury for the insubordination, but a profound, almost primal admiration for their loyalty. "Copy that, Lieutenant," Thompson finally replied, his voice still stiff, but with a subtle tremor of respect. "Rendezvous Point Alpha. Over and out." Rendezvous back at the forward operating base, Miller was rushed into surgery. He survived, against all odds. Lieutenant Carter and his squad, battered, exhausted, but with an unbreakable bond, awaited their punishment. Colonel Thompson approached them. He didn't scream. He didn't court-martial them. Instead, he simply looked at Carter, his eyes holding a complex mix of command and profound respect. He paused, then gave a single, slow, deliberate nod. It was more powerful than any reprimand, more meaningful than any medal. It was an acknowledgement that in the fog of war, some codes run deeper than regulations. The story of Lieutenant Carter's defiance and his squad's unwavering loyalty spread like wildfire through the Marine Corps. They became legends, a testament to the unwritten code, no man left behind. Lieutenant Carter eventually received a formal reprimand for insubordination, but his career, surprisingly, thrived. He commanded with a unique blend of discipline and fierce loyalty, his men following him anywhere. Sergeant Miller, fully recovered, returned to duty, serving side by side with the men who had literally dragged him back from the dead. Their bond, forged in defiance and sacrifice, was unbreakable. This story reminds us that while rules are crucial, and discipline is the bedrock of any military, there are moments when the human spirit, driven by loyalty and love for a brother, transcends every protocol. It's in these moments that true heroes are born, not just by following orders, but by daring to defy them, by risking everything for the sake of another. The Marine unit that refused to leave a man behind didn't just save a life. They reaffirmed the very soul of military brotherhood. Thank you for watching The Historic State. If this extraordinary tale of loyalty, defiance, and unbreakable bonds touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because here, we bring you the untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring spirit that truly defines our shared history.